So one of the things about doing a weekly show is that there's always the possibility of something happening, such a major news event that changes the course of the show itself. So we had a show on Friday, and now the show's changed.
That it has.
And the reason being because Stan Lee died on Monday. Actually, someone pointed out to me on Veterans Day, which is also appropriate. So, you know, I figured we should not start the show like we normally do. We should start the show by talking about Stan Lee. I know a lot of people are doing this right now online, but of course we're going to talk about Stan Lee. Like, you know, he was the man. So I'm going to start with you. Like, anything that you kind of wanted to throw out there and just...
I mean, I'm just, you know, he was amazing, obviously. An absolute pioneer, a big icon for everything. And I think that it's important to celebrate what he did. I know everybody's feeling sad and all, but, you know, he had such a body of work and such an influence that I think we have to just keep him going.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I don't think there's ever going to, I really doubt there will ever be a news event as big as this in comics. Yeah. And the reason for that, I think, is really simple. Like, he was everybody's favorite uncle, right, in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
He was our tour guide through a lot of different universes and realms and worlds and stuff like that. And, you know, the mere presence of him put a smile on people's faces. Yeah. And so, yeah, like, you know, we're going to talk a little bit more about him later in the show. And I'm sure this is not going to be the last, even on this show, outside of the show, this won't be the last we'll talk about Stan Lee.
Of course.
But, yeah, well, I mean, what can you say? Like, yeah, he was a legend, you know?
The man.
And to your point, you know, like, there's no better legacy than being remembered by people, and he's got a lot of things to be remembered by, so there you go. And yeah, afterwards, towards the end of the show, we're going to show you guys some of your reactions and some of the industry reactions to Stan Lee's passing. So we're going to get into that. But it is Wednesday, and welcome to Previews World Weekly. I am one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and let's get right to it.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at some comics that are coming out this week.
Hey Previews World! Every week we give you the rundown of some of the books hitting the shelves for the first time. Here's what's at comic shops this week. Is that it? No way. Your local comic shop has something for every type of customer. So stop at a comic shop today, and I'll see you back here next week.
Yet again, a great list of cool stuff coming out. Anything you've got on your mind here?
Off the top of my head, I do want to mention that Firefly #1. Firefly #1 sold huge.
Yeah.
Like, actually, like, I want to say it's probably one of Boom Studios' biggest releases. And it's cool because I don't know how many people are familiar with the Firefly series, but I know a lot of people do love the series. And it's actually taking place within the Unification War. Me personally, Serenity was one of my, it's one of the movies, my go-to movies, one of the more entertaining movies I always watch.
I like that I know that about you.
Yeah, right.
It's important.
And one of my favorite things in the beginning of the movie is like how they always say that humans are meddlesome. And like, interestingly enough, this Unification War book is kind of going to really dive into that, because what happens when you try to unify the planets and the space, and you know, and why does that get ugly? So, and it's, you know, it's by Greg Pak, who did World War Hulk, and of course Joss Whedon is overseeing the whole thing, and it seems to be already paying off. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the news. But what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking at Bitter Root. It's a book from Image Comics. Looks really neat. It's from David F. Walker and Sanford Green. They're the creative team for Power Man and Iron Fist, so they know what's up, right? And yeah, it's just 24 action-packed pages of monsters, mayhem, and family dysfunction, and it just looks really fun.
And during the Harlem Renaissance, which is also really cool. Another one that I'm looking forward to is actually Black Max. I've been really into like British pulp comics lately.
Cool.
And this one is a World War I like ace pilot story, but there's also an element of like Black Max is actually the bad guy. Yeah, basically the Brits are after him, and like he has like these 2 mutated massive bats. It's just like a very, it's like
cool.
a supernatural World War I story.
I like that.
And it just sounds crazy, and it's just right up my alley. Nice. So yeah, I'm all for it. That's in trade paperback. That's out this week, of course. What about you? What else are you?
British Bond.
Yeah,
Bond. We got James Bond Origin. We got the 3rd issue out, and
also World War I.
Also World War I. Yeah, but it's we got Jeff Parker on there and Bob Q, and it's James Bond.
It's James Bond.
What else do you need?
Yeah.
I love me a good Bond story.
I trust Jeff Parker because he's kind of has he tends to do a lot of retro stuff. He did some of the Hanna-Barbera books.
Yeah.
And he also did the Batman '66. And he seems to have like an affinity for a certain era of hero. So like, yeah, I'm actually really curious about that myself.
Yeah.
Also out this week, Electric Warriors, which actually I stumbled across by accident. Like I was like, go through the new releases every week on this website.
Right.
And Steve Orlando, who did Doom Patrol and JLA, is teaming up with Travel Foreman, who is actually really blowing up right now. Like he's just like his name keeps popping up in every like book that I like keep taking a look at. Cool. But basically, we were talking about Unification Wars. This is kind of like something similar, where it's basically all the planets are trying to unify, and Earth screws it up.
Fancy that.
And it takes place in the far-flung future of the DC universe, and so they send like they're pretty much like we're supposed to be their best warriors to represent their planet, and it turns out that they send 2 when they're really only supposed to send 1. Earth. So, we always got to do it bigger than everybody else. But yeah, Steve Orlando is Travel Foreman. The main character apparently has Superman's cape, and so I guess you're going to find out more about how he got Superman's cape on top of that. Yeah, just an interesting look at the DC universe from like a different vantage point, like not just like as we currently know it. So, and also I'm a sucker for anything remotely battle royale like, like anything in that vein I'm all for. So. Also I want to mention Bloodshot Rising. Spirit is out this week. We're going to actually have an interview with 2 of Valiant's editors who are going to catch us up to speed on everything going on in the Valiant universe up until this point, because we all know this, Vin Diesel's going to have a Bloodshot movie soon. Yep. So they're going to talk a little bit about that, but they're also going to talk about what's going on in the comics currently, so that when you pick up Bloodshot Rising Spirit this week, you'll be all caught up. Although you should read trade paperbacks too. Yeah. Also, I want to point out that Johnny, our editor, actually, he and I have like been kind of like talking a little bit back and forth about Cosmic Ghost Rider. The last issue is out this week. And that's a pretty great one because it's Frank Castle, the Punisher. He's been like possessed by the spirit of vengeance, and now he is Ghost Rider. And it's a very unique and very different take because he's also responsible for, sorry, I'm actually looking at the cover. He's also responsible for Baby Thanos because he goes back in time. So yeah, that's a really fun one.
Sounds insane.
Yeah, just in general, it's actually a very big week for Marvel. There's Uncanny X-Men #1, which has a slew of talent like behind it, like just like a bunch of artists and writers, all of which you're very familiar with. And on top of that, we also have Avengers #700, which is a really big one because it's a huge anniversary issue, and that's the culmination of a lot of things that Ed McGuinness and Jason Aaron have been working on. And Black Order #1 for those of you who were enamored by the villains of Infinity War, and also Infinity because they first appeared in the Jonathan Hickman run, which we're actually going to give away all 3 of those things. So how can they win?
Fancy, fancy. So yeah, Uncanny X-Men #1, Avengers 700, and Black Order #1. Tell us who or what is your favorite Stan Lee co-creation. Leave us a comment below, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching. We'll take entries until this Friday at noon and pick a random winner from everyone who commented.
Yeah. And so like I also want to point out that the Uncanny X-Men #1 is also a variant cover out this week, and that's exclusively for local comic shop day. So if that is something that you're interested in, you're about to find out about it right now in the news.
We've had a lot of great announcements come out recently. Earlier this week, DC Black Label made the announcement that they're going to re-release over 20 iconic DC stories in 2019. They launched recently with the release of Batman Damned and Batman White Knight. Notable additions coming in 2019 include a Watchmen hardcover, a Batman The Dark Knight Returns trade paperback, and a Batman The Killing Joke trade paperback. Check out the full list of titles and release dates on our site at PREVIEWSworld.com. Next up, Image Comics is pleased to reveal an exclusive triptych cover for the forthcoming Prodigy comic book by Mark Miller and illustrated by Raphael Albuquerque. The series will launch this December from Image Comics and is the latest addition to the Netflix Millarworld franchises shepherded by Mark and his wife Lucy. Prodigy #1 will be available on Wednesday, December 5th. Next up, Boom Studios announced that Firefly #1 sold out at the distributor level before arriving in comic book shops on November 14th. To meet this overwhelming demand from fans, a second printing variant will arrive in stores next month, with an all-new cover by Kirby Fagan featuring everyone's favorite miracle worker, Kwinnett Lee Kaylee Fry. This is available exclusively in comic shops on December 12th. Daredevil is no more, but the mayhem in Hell's Kitchen waits for no one, and this January, a weekly series asks the question that everyone is grappling with. How do you live in a world without Daredevil? Man Without Fear brings together the heroes and villains of Hell's Kitchen to face the chaos and disorder of a city without a guardian devil, including Foggy Nelson, the Defenders, the many loves of Matt Murdock, and of course, Wilson Fisk, formerly the kingpin of crime and now the mayor of New York. Man Without Fear #1 will be available in stores January 2nd. You'll have to wait to pre-order Venom #11, but that didn't stop series artist Ryan Stegman from revealing a Watchmen-like variant cover for the issue by Watchmen co-creator Dave Gibbons himself. The Venom variant pays homage to Gibbons' Watchmen #1 cover from 1986. This is available for pre-order in the next month's Previews catalog. And last but not least, Local Comic Shop Day. Long live the local comic shop. This is a day celebrating the independent spirit of local comic book specialty shops, and it's returning for its 4th annual event this Saturday, November 17th. A ton of unique and pretty extremely limited items will be available, including titles such as Alien 3, Blackbird, Gideon Falls, WWE, and some Mighty Morphin Power Rangers blind boxes. For a list of participating stores, as well as the full list of special items, head over to localcomicshopday.com.
No, the WWE cover is my favorite. I love that.
It's really fun.
Yeah, all the legends just in a battle royale. I don't remember who the artist is, but I love that cover. Also, James Stucco's Alien 3 cover. He's not the interior artist, just Johnny Christmas is the interior artist. But like James Stucco, he draws aliens really well, and bizarre H.R. Geiger type ships almost as well as H.R. Geiger does. So, now we're gonna take a look at toys. Like, you know, again, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday at your local comic shop, and yeah, you can go to your local comic shop on Saturday and pick up all these things, but you can also pick them up today. So here are all the collectibles available now.
Yet another great list of cool stuff you can pick up this week. And we have one of the pieces here in the studio with us. What do we got here, Troy?
This is the Venom PVC diorama from Diamond Select Toys. It's part of the Marvel Gallery line. There's a bunch of other ones, of course, in this line, all from the Marvel Universe. I love this because it's sort of like peekaboo Venom.
Peekaboo Venom.
Peekaboo Venom. Because, like, you know, yeah, you know, it's like the symbiote is either separating from him or like joining him in this image, and so like you get like a little bit of Eddie Brock. You know, actually, you know, I fell down a rabbit hole of like Stan Lee cameos yesterday,
of course, and
one of them was from actually the Venom movie, and actually there was a scene very similar to this. So this is actually a really great representation of quintessential Venom. So yeah,
very true.
How do we win this?
So yes, we're giving this puppy away. We want you guys to comment, let us know what you thought of the Venom movie. Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching. And of course, we'll take entries until this Friday at noon and pick a random winner.
Cool. Yeah, and yeah, no, this is actually really awesome. I really love the way this looks.
That's a cool one.
And like there are plenty more from Diamond Select Toys in the Marvel Gallery edition. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at a trailer for one of the books out this week, Life is Strange, based on the video game of the same name. It's coming from Titan Comics and it's part of a 5-issue miniseries. And we're going to dive into it right now. Take a look at Life is Strange.
yourself down, drink your lemonade. Need a sweeter medicine that tastes right. Under the hideout, and again and again and again, you walk on the silver screen, selling magazines. I try to lie down, but I fall and I fall and I fall out of your dreams. Close your eyes again, look for sympathy.
And that was Life is Strange from Titan Comics, available this week at your local comic shop. I've never played the game before, so I'm not going to pretend that I did. But I found one of the things I found really interesting about this is I read a piece about the, actually it was an interview on our website, where the creator or the writer of the book mentioned how difficult it is to tell a linear story in something like this, because the game really is about player's choice.
Yes.
Like it really does give, like, you know, the player control of the narrative.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really interesting.
Sure.
Like, and so it would be. I'm very curious how people will react to being told this particular type of story. So check out Life is Strange. That's out this week. Also available this week is Bloodshot: Rising Spirit #1. Is by Ken Lashley, who I had an opportunity to interview with earlier on a couple of weeks back. So if you get a chance to check that out. It doesn't talk about Bloodshot that much, unfortunately, but Carl Bowlers and Robert Meyer, who I did interview at Baltimore Comic-Con, do actually talk a little bit about Bloodshot, specifically the movie, but they also catch us up to speed on all things Valiant in the current Valiant universe. So here's an interview I did with both of them. They're both they're part of the editorial team at Valiant. And like, yeah, they just kind of catch us up to speed on all the events so that when you pick up Bloodshot this week, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Check it out.
Hey, Previews World, Troy Jeffrey Allen here at Baltimore Comic-Con, and I'm sitting next to Rob Myers and Carl Ballers. These guys, of course, were Valiant Comics. So, like, let's talk a little bit about, well, what can you guys tell us about the Bloodshot movie? Because I see Vin Diesel, he's on Instagram, he's posting pictures.
He's ripped.
Like, I don't know how much you guys are in that circle or whatever, but what can you tell us?
Well, it's currently in production.
It is certainly currently in production. No, we're for one, we're incredibly excited. You know, there's one thing to make a superhero movie. There's another thing to make a Vin Diesel movie. You know, he's got an amazing fan base. He's an incredibly talented guy. You know, he's going to give it all to this film. So we're excited. You know, I've read an older iteration of the script, and it is really good. Dave Wilson, the director, I've seen his like concept reel, and it is incredible. It is just lights out incredible. So I think people are going to be amazed at how good it is. Like, it's not only going to be good, it's going to be that good. So it's in production. Apparently we're aiming for a February 2020 release. Principal photography should be wrapping, I believe, at the end of October.
So, okay, let's talk a little bit about, before we close it, let's talk a little bit about the post-Harbinger Wars, like, you know, for Valiant. Like, what are you guys excited about? Because a lot of things have changed after Harbinger Wars, too.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what are you guys excited for down the line that you can tell us about?
Well, I guess coming out of Harbinger Wars 2 would be Livewire, who's one of the main players in that. She's going to get her own ongoing series where we see how the world views her in the wake of what she did in Harbinger Wars 2. She shut off the United States power grid.
Yeah, she was a major player.
And now she's a major player, and now she's also wanted. She's a fugitive. So that's going to be the main thrust of her series. So we're really excited. We've never done a book like that with a female character where they're sort of on the run and an anti-hero, but a hero at the same time. So it's going to be interesting to see what the team does with that.
Okay, cool. Cool.
And it's exciting because from Harbinger in 2012, we've been building Livewire as a character. You know, from the Harbinger to Unity to Secret Weapons to Harbinger Wars 2, and now in our own series. Of all of our characters, the most deserving, perhaps, of a new ongoing series. Beyond that, like, our universe is, we set Harbinger Wars 2 up. We've been planting the seeds of this for 2 years. We set it as set it up to level the playing field, and we can, with a fresh start, which we're going to take full advantage of. Carl's got some projects in the works that I'm not allowed to talk about, but I think that people are going to be incredibly excited. We'll have some news the next week or so. Some characters that every single show people ask about that I can finally say, yes.
This is the big one.
They're coming. So, we've got an aggressive publishing plan for 2019. We're going to have some characters we haven't seen in a little while back on the board, and we're going to see some existing characters in new ways that we've not seen yet.
Okay,
so.
Cool.
And Bloodshot. Bloodshot.
Yeah. It seems at this point like a lot of roads are going to lead to that. So,
Hey
guys, I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks,
Carl. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, sir.
Guys, check out Valiant. Of course, you can get it at your local comic shop. This has been Troy Jeffrey Allen at Baltimore Comic-Con, and we'll see you at your spinner rack.
And thank you to Carl Bowlers and Robert Myers for joining us for that interview and getting us up to speed on the Valiant universe. One of the things I took away from that is like there's always just like this promise around every corner for the Valiant universe. It's still relatively new compared to some of the other the DC or Marvel and stuff like that. But they've also been around long enough that they can like lean on their legacy and kind of like continue to build and build and build. And it's just cool, like just great potential for growth. And speaking of potential for growth, Stan Lee created the Marvel Universe, and well, he co-created the Marvel Universe. I make sure I always say that because it's true. But he was also a very key element in making like a lot of childhoods and a lot of adulthoods in some cases, right? And so we wanted to end with like just talking about him. And I actually have a story, like everybody else. Everybody has a story about him, which I actually also think is a real testament to his legacy. Like, yeah, everyone has like a chance encounter with him or a picture of him, but I don't have a picture of him. But he came to Baltimore Comic-Con a few years ago, and I did want to sit in a panel with him because I wanted to hear him talk. And it just so happens that I sat right across from a rep of DC Comics. Like he was literally in the same room with me. And the panel was being held by Jimmy Palmiotti, who's another comic creator. And he was going around the room pointing to people, whatever. And I just couldn't help but notice that the DC guy and me we're both in the back, and every 5 seconds, like he would like go to try to find another question for Stan Lee, and we'd raise our hands, and he'd raise his hand, I'd raise my hand, and it got me thinking that like, well, why do we do that? Like, it's not just a chance to say something to Stan Lee.
Right.
We wanted him to tell us a story.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what his true power was, his true gift was, his ability to tell stories, and for that reason, we wanted to hear the story of Stan Lee in your words. So that's what we're going to do right now. Thea has a couple of like a couple of select polls from Twitter and Instagram and Facebook of just what some of the people have said about him and people in the industry and outside the industry. So I'll just let you go for it.
Yeah, everybody had a lot of really nice things to say. Walter Simonson said that Stan Lee has caught the last web out. He's one of the 3, maybe 4 contributors to the field who fired my interest in writing and drawing stories for mainstream American comics. Thrilled to have been able to work with him. Godspeed, pal. Michael Duran of Newsarama, he's the founder and managing editor, he said, on a personal note, I'm sure today many people in and around comic books are asking themselves, would I be doing what I am in life if there was never a Stan Lee? My answer is almost certainly no, so thank you. Jonathan Hickman says, I guess I'm supposed to be sad that Stan Lee has died, and I am, but I'm mostly smiling, thinking about what a kick-ass 95 years that was. Rest in peace, Mr. Lee, you earned it. Winston Duke says, thank you. You gave us characters that continue to stand the test of time and evolve with our consciousness. You taught us that there are no limits to our future as long as we have access to our imagination. Rest in power. And last but not least, DC Comics said, he changed the way we look at heroes, and modern comics will always bear his indelible mark. His infectious enthusiasm reminded us why we all fell in love with these stories in the first place. Excelsior, Stan.
That's good. I love that. That's great. And it's from DC, right? I mean, that's just, yeah, that's really nice. We had a lot of like tweets and Instagram posts, and like there was one from The Rock in there, there was one from Zoe Saldana, and it just proves like how many different people he's affected in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, because like we started off with like something like 25, and we had to whittle it down because literally, social media went from talking about, election stuff, like, you know, and went straight into like Stan Lee for a day.
Absolutely.
Everyone put down the pitchforks for 5 seconds and, like, you know, made it a point to just acknowledge his passing, which I thought was really nice. And
yeah, it was a major outpouring of love. And like you said, from across the board, even Gene Simmons made a response to it. I mean, he was so important to so many people.
And I think only he could do that in this current climate. So I think that's really impressive. With that said, we're going to go ahead and take a moment of silence for Stan Lee, and this will actually close out our show. So we will see you guys next week. This has been Previews World Weekly. I am Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea. And we'll see you at the Spinner Rack.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
Thanks for watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.